9 spine-chilling yard sale tales, unexplained horrors exposed in the shadows of sinister sales. Emma stood at the edge of her yard, heart racing as she prepared for the day ahead. The sun painted the crisp morning in shades of gold, but a chill crawled down her spine. A yard sale, was it really just a way to clear out clutter? Or were hidden horrors lurking, waiting to be unearthed? Every box she opened felt like a Pandora's box, setting off a wave of dread in her gut. As she set up tables under the large oak tree, the laughter of her kids, Lucas and Mia, rang through the air, blissfully unaware of the darkness creeping into their lives. Neighbors started to appear, arms crossed, eyes scanning the chaotic assortment of toys, clothes, and knickknacks. A figure emerged from the crowd. It was Mr. Collins, the neighbor everyone admired, with his syrupy smile and that twinkle in his eye that felt all too disarming. As he offered to help her with the sale, a little voice inside Emma screamed to stay away. But she was polite, grateful even, because who could resist a friendly hand in a moment of need? The way he lingered near her daughter's toys sent unshakable shivers crawling over her skin. Something was off. The familiar trinkets unearthed from the depths of her husband's belongings began to twist within her thoughts. A small porcelain doll, a scruffy teddy bear, a scarf she remembered fondly from her own childhood. Strange images flickered in her mind, long shadows, doors slamming shut, and whispers that echoed through the stillness of night. A sudden unease sparked when Lucas asked, "Mom, who's that?" pointing at a sinister-looking artifact she'd never seen before. Fear gripped her heart, and the questions bubbled in her chest, but she forced a smile and waved it away. As the day unfolded, murmurs stirred among the neighbors, tense approaches hidden behind warm facades. She caught snippets of conversations that made her stomach churn, mentions of disappearances. Children gone too soon, just vanished into thin air. Emma's breath hitched as anxiety clawed its way in. What if? A question without an answer. The night brought darkness, and it carried with it strange noises that rustled through her home. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The house groaned with unsettling complaints that night, as if it soaked in the dread. Emma clutched her pillow, listening to each creak and whisper twist tighter around her. Dark thoughts invoked old tales of Maplewood, of sinister rituals performed in the shadows. Memories fell like rain, quickening her pulse. Just days after the sale, whispers of missing children became more vivid. Then came another visit from Mr. Collins. His gaze drifted too long toward her kids, his words unsettlingly rotted with familiarity. Emma noticed the shadows behind him growing darker, the whispers more pronounced. She felt trapped in a web spun from her grief, insecurity battling against the knife-edge tension that constricted around her family. As he spoke sweet nothings about her husband, his eyes danced with a crazed fervor. She could almost hear the unwelcome thoughts echoing. "You should be grateful for a friend like me." But Emma had seen enough. The laughter of her children faded into the encroaching darkness, swallowed whole by the lurking danger that shadowed their lives. Who in Maplewood could truly be trusted? As her grip on the world began to slip, she realized she was standing where nightmares were born, and time was no longer her ally. The clock ticked painfully slow as the night wore on. Emma felt trapped in a nightmare that had no escape. Each chime echoed in the silence, reminding her that the daylight could bring no comfort. Shadows in her home had grown thick, lurking like sentinels in the corners. She tried to breathe deep, but the air felt charged with static, electrifying her nerves. Mia and Lucas were asleep, blissfully ignorant of the torment that had settled over their mother. Emma tiptoed into the living room, her heart pounding against her chest as she glanced out the front window. The street was cloaked in darkness, but the lights from her yard flickered ominously, reflecting the unease that festered. It was a mockery of peace. Suddenly, A sharp rap on the door sent her nerves into a frenzy. She pushed her back against the wall and held her breath. Another knock, softer this time, but filled with a nagging familiarity. Mr. Collins? The way his name tasted on her tongue sent chills coursing through her. What could he possibly want at this hour? Gathering her courage, Emma edged toward the door, peering through the peephole. She could see him standing there, slightly hunched, the moonlight glinting off his glasses. Was he waiting for an invitation, or contemplating how to invade her sacred space? The thought made her skin prickle. "Emma!" he called out, his voice a silken thread slicing through the stillness. "Open up, it's just me." Panic lodged itself in her throat. What if he sensed the tension simmering in the air? What if he knew something? And what if she had no clue what hidden horrors his presence bred? "Emma, I brought something for the kids," he persisted, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "You know how much they loved that teddy bear from the sale? I thought they might like this." Before she could stop herself, she grabbed the doorknob, but hesitated. With each twist, images of her children flashed in her mind, Lucas with that goofy grin, Mia clutching her favorite book. She wouldn't let anything tear them away from her. "Please, Mr. Collins," she croaked, pushing the door back a fraction. "It's late. Can it wait until morning?" His smile faltered. Shadows deepened around his eyes, twisting his features into something grotesque. "I only want to be a good neighbor." The way he said good neighbor sent sickening chills down her spine. It felt like a curse wrapped in kindness. She slammed the door shut, backing away as the shadows behind her seemed to grow bolder, creeping toward her like fingers of a ghost. Then came the whisper, a soft voice weaving through her thoughts. "Emma, don't trust him." She pressed her palms against her ears, trying to drown out the voices that grew louder, merging with a cold wind that snaked through cracks in the walls. The sound of rustling boxes echoed from the yard, like whispers of buried secrets clawing their way back to life. Something wasn't right, and it felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. As panic set in, Emma suddenly caught sight of movement outside. Little figures flitted through the darkness. She rushed to the window, her heart hammering, and squinted into the night. Was it her imagination? No. Standing out there, in eerie silence, were children too many, their features obscured by the shadows. Emma's breath quickened as she recognized Mia's bright pink jacket among them. Rushing to the door, she swung it open, heart in her throat, desperate to call out her child's name. But the words choked in her throat as they turned to her, faces twisted, eyes hollow. Then they began to chant, words slithering through the night, "Join us, Emma, come play." She staggered back against the doorframe, terror crashing over her like a tsunami. Her insides twisted as the reality of the truth clawed at her, a truth she wasn't prepared to face. What awaited her if she stepped outside? As her mind reeled, the whispers intensified, surrounding her, deep and sinister. This was just the beginning, she realized. She had awoken something that had been buried for too long. And suddenly she understood, the sale wasn't merely a clearing of junk. It was the ignition of something far worse. When the doorbell rang again, every nerve in her body screamed to flee. But the children remained outside, a specter-like army, showing her what she never wanted to see. Before Emma could react, the shadows swirled and a bone-chilling wind surged past her, carrying their coaxing plea. What could she do now? As fear knitted through her very being, she felt a grim certainty settle in. The chilling question loomed, were they her children anymore? Or were they just a part of the darkness that now stretched its fingers through Maplewood? With a sudden crash, it dawned on her. She had to choose between facing the horror or plunging deeper into the unknown. But could she protect what was left, or was it too late? A moment's decision felt heavier than the dark clouds swirling above. What would happen next? Emma stumbled back, her heart racing wildly as the children's chants seeped into her mind like poison. They looked like her kids Mia and Lucas, but their eyes held a depth of darkness that she couldn't ignore. Each beat of her heart pulsed with terror, a warning to steer clear of the void they represented. The wind howled outside, carrying the whispers of the children like a horrifying melody. She shut her eyes tightly, trying to block everything out. But their chant wormed its way in. join us. Emma, come play stop it!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of panic. Opening her eyes again, she caught a glimpse of their twisted smiles. It was nearly unbearable. She felt her limbs grow heavy, as if the very shadows were pulling at her, wanting to drag her into their depths. Trembling, she turned on her heel, desperate to retreat into the safety of her home. The door creaked as she slammed it shut, locking it this time. Breathing heavily, she leaned against it, pressing her back to the wood, heart in her throat. Dark shapes moved beyond the window, their small bodies bobbing like puppets on strings. But she could barely think about what they might do next. Her mind raced to what she had unleashed by letting that unwanted sail into her life. From the corner of her eye, a flicker of movement caught her attention, and she spun to see the shadows thickening in her living room. The boxes that had once been mundane clutter were now taunting her, reshaping themselves into grotesque forms, just out of her view. A chill crept down her spine, and she caught her breath, swaying slightly. She could hear their laughter echoing from outside, high-pitched and wrong. It pierced her like 1,000 tiny knives. Desperation clawed at her insides. What if Mia and Lucas were still in there, trapped alongside the shadows? What if they had become part of this terrible game? No. She had to think. She couldn't succumb to madness. Emma needed a plan. Grabbing her phone from the table, her fingers trembled as she scrolled through contacts. Who could save her from this? The police? A neighbor? The thought of Mr. Collins brought bile to her throat. No, she couldn't trust anyone nearby. Not anymore. Suddenly, the chanting outside twisted into something more pronounced, more sinister. "Let us in, Emma, let us play." Terror made her hesitate. She squeezed her eyes shut, visualizing her kids, memories flooding in like a tide. "I'll find you," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath in a desperate bid to stay anchored to reality. But just as she opened her eyes, a muffled crash came from the kitchen, what felt like a heavy weight crashing into the cabinets. Adrenaline surged through her, pushing her into action. Steeling herself one last time, she turned toward the sound, her breath shaky but determined. What if that was where the shadows had taken them? With steady resolve, she moved toward the kitchen, each step echoing with dread. The shadows seemed to retreat as she approached, but something far more sinister loomed just beyond her reach. A dark figure shifted in the corner of her eye, never fully in focus. Emma's heart thumped as she gathered every ounce of courage. "Mia! Lucas! I'm coming!" But as she crossed the threshold, the kitchen lights buzzed overhead, flickering ominously, and in that instant, dread washed through her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she would find them changed, altered. The tension in the air snapped like a taut string, leaving nothing but heavy silence. As she stepped inside, the room felt cold, too cold, and from the corner, a shadow coalesced. The echo of the children faded, replaced by low, menacing growls. Were they still out there, waiting? Desperately, she called out, feeling the words slip from her trembling lips, "I'm here," but something shifted behind her. The shadows thickened. And in the rapidly deepening darkness, she felt a hint of something sharp, something that pulsed with life, beckoning her closer. How could she turn away now? The walls trembled with a sinister whisper, "Join us, Emma," and that was the moment she realized the nightmare was only just beginning. What had she really brought home? Emma's breath froze in her throat as she turned to face the shadow, the flickering light illuminating a figure that twisted and warped with every heartbeat. It lunged forward, a mere shadow morphing into something vaguely human, yet chillingly wrong. The edges of its form flickered like a poorly tuned television, distorting her perception of reality. "Mia!" she cried again, desperation thick in her voice. But no answer came, only an echoed cackle that felt foreign, alien. Was it them? Or was it something worse? The hairs on her arms stood on end as if the air around her crackled with an unnatural energy, making her heart pound like a frantic drum. She backed away slowly, inching toward the door. A sudden crash from the cabinet sent Emma jumping, her instincts screaming for her to escape. She barely turned before another shadow lunged in her direction, blocking her path. Panic surged through her as she realized the shadows now filled the kitchen, their forms shifting, no longer mere shapes but grotesque mockeries of what she once cherished. Emma, Mom, the soft, taunting voices twisted her heart, squeezing it with icy fingers. They were mimicking Mia and Lucas. But deeper, something sinister relayed the darkness that had seized them. She could hear her children's laughter morph into shrieks, haunting her with what could have been. No! This isn't real. You're not my kids! Her words were desperate, pleading against the shadows closing in around her. The creature loomed closer, its face still indistinct, yet she could feel the dread pouring off it. It had knowledge of her. She sensed its hunger. Play with us forever, Emma, they want to join. Gritting her teeth, she turned to flee, her instincts kicking in again, but the door was now shut tight beyond her reach. That suffocating darkness pulsed around her like a living thing, slithering between her fingers as she grasped the doorknob. I'll find you, Mia! I won't let them take you! In a moment of sheer defiance, she ripped the door open, stumbling back into the hall. The chaos of the shadows clung to her, swirling around her heels, desperate for her to return. Before her, the silhouette of the living room gaped like the maw of a beast, an insatiable hunger ready to swallow her whole. The chanting started again, a steady rhythm contrasting with the pandemonium that surrounded her. Join us, Emma, join us. The air thickened, each word embedding fear deeper into her heart. On the wall, something caught her eye, a flicker of light from the living room, a glimmer of something shiny. Without thinking, Emma dashed towards it, driven by a flicker of hope amidst the terror. Shadows lunged out, grasping towards her waist, their icy fingers sending chills through her body, but she pushed through. As she reached the entrance, her fingers brushed against a familiar object, a small silver locket, half buried beneath a pile of what she had thought were harmless trinkets. She recognized it instantly as the jewelry box from her mother's estate sale, the one she had thought important enough to keep. But why was it here? As she gripped it, the shadows shrieked, a chorus of distorted voices rising with anger. The growls morphed into tormented howls, echoing around her. Each sound reverberated in her bones, causing her to stumble back. Emma? Mom! A voice cried out, the clarity cutting through the darkness. It wasn't the tainted whisper she had grown to fear. It was Mia. Just behind the shadows, she saw her daughter, or the image of her perhaps, wreathed in swirling darkness, trapped on the other side. Help us! Lucas' voice joined, a frantic plea, urging her forward. Emma's chest tightened, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. Should she risk it all? Did she have enough courage to step into the abyss, to face whatever it was that held her children? Could that shimmering locket save them, or would it pull her deeper into this nightmare? The weight of her decision hung heavy in the air. With a silent prayer, she held the locket up high, ready to confront the shadows as they writhed around her, hungry for the lure of her presence. Mia! Lucas! I'm coming! But would they be waiting for her? Or would she discover the truth about the sale that had cost her everything? The shadows swirled, a hungry mass of darkness that lunged at her with jagged edges, flaring like wild flames, ready to scorch her soul. Emma's grip tightened on the locket as she stood frozen in the moment, heart racing, doubt clawing at her mind. This can't be happening, she murmured, staring into the depths that promised everything but safety. Help us! Mia's voice echoed again, more insistent this time, like a devoted lighthouse drawing her through the storm. Just as quickly it was swallowed by the cacophony of tortured wails rising from the depths. Emma wavered between fear and resolve, those haunting sounds threatening to shatter her sanity. With the locket glowing in her trembling hand, she took a breath deep, shaky, and stepped forward. The shadows recoiled as if burned, but immediately retaliated, surging forward with sheer force. Stop! She shouted, panic breaking her voice. You're not my children! That only seemed to excite the dark, a sick glee rolling through its whispers. What was it, this malevolent force? What did it want? The question gnawed at her as she surged ahead, fueled by desperation and the love for her children. Mia! Lucas! The names fell from her lips like an incantation, a plea that echoed within the darkness. The shadows recoiled again, their voices becoming disjointed, like broken glass slashing through the air. The locket pulsed with warmth, a small ember resisting the chill, urging her forward into the living room where walls shadowed her every move. Dim light flickered overhead, casting eerie shapes dancing grotesquely against the walls. "Please! Stop!" The shadows howled, twisting back, seething with frustration at her defiance. They surged forward, claws reaching, desperate to reclaim their hold. It was the backlash of trapped energy, a violent push against the light of hope she bore. Then it happened. In an instant of clarity, the locket reacted, emitting a blinding light that illuminated the room in stark white. Emma covered her eyes, stumbling backward from the pressure of the radiance shattering through the dark. It surged through the shadows, momentarily brightening the ghastly landscape, and she felt a connection, a tether snapping vibrantly toward Mia and Lucas. "Mom!" Their voices surged through the bright, cutting above the veil of darkness. Driven by instinct, she shouted, "I'm here!" Each syllable erupted with defiance. Searing light poured forth, revealing flickers of her children trapped in a net of shadows, faces twisted in plea and pain. Her heart shattered at the sight. "Take my hand! Please!" Wide-eyed and consumed with determination, Emma stepped through the radiant wall of the locket, the warmth guiding her, cocooning her against the encroaching darkness. She reached forward with open palms, willing to grasp them, to pull them back. The shadows hissed, a thunderous noise rising to an unbearable crescendo. An icy grip wrapped around her legs, yanking her backward. "You're ours!" They shrieked, clawing at her body, desperately pulling her away. But she could feel it, the bond of love forged by years, unbreakable against their thrall. The light flickered. "Emma?" they cried, their voices mix of fear and urgency growing more pronounced. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled in horror as the locket began to burn with intensity, illuminating the dark like a supernova. The claws retreated, and Emma's pulse raced with hope. "I want to let go!" she cried. But then it dimmed, flickering at the edge of existence. "No! Stay with us!" The retreating shadows echoed her despair, their voices a cacophony of rage and frustration. Emma felt herself teetering on the edge, the locket's light dimming. The whispers grew frantic, swirling toward her like a storm. It was now or never. Would she choose the fiery embrace of light or the crushing surrender of darkness? Every heartbeat echoed with the weight of her choice. Would she be strong enough to pull Mia and Lucas back, or would the shadows take them all? In that fleeting moment of uncertainty, the shadows hushed, and a cold wind whispered the answer. The locket flared brighter than the sun, casting a blinding radiance, breaking through the celestial horror. But would it be enough? As the shadows pulled, a piercing scream rang out, a scream that sounded too familiar. Suddenly, the light shattered, leaving Emma grasping at nothingness. Just where was she now? Even as hope flickered, darkness loomed ominously, waiting to draw her further into its endless void. Emma stumbled, disoriented, engulfed by the echo of her own breath. The warm glow of the locket had vanished, leaving her shivering in an abyss of choking black. She blinked frantically, peering into the smothering dark, every instinct screaming for her to flee. Then she heard it, a laugh, unnatural and deep, winding through the shadows like a serpent. "Welcome back, Emma," the voice rumbled with malicious delight. It was a whisper and a roar, all at once, and it sent ice through her veins. "Did you really think you could take them from us?" Chills raced down her spine. The shadows pulsed around her, undulating like a creature pretending to be human, but it was nothing less than evil itself. "Where are my children?" she demanded, her voice barely a whisper, trembling with fear and fury. The laughter intensified, each peal dancing on her nerves. "They're very close, my dear, so much closer than you realize. They play a very special game now." The edges of shadow twisted, forming indistinct shapes, whispers peppering the air, some familiar, some terrifyingly foreign. "Game?" she echoed, panic seizing as she felt the presence closing in. "What are you talking about? Don't you know?" A long, drawn-out sigh followed, echoing like an emptied balloon drifting toward oblivion. "Your children are part of the fabric now. They entered a world where darkness dances with dreams. But dreams have a price, dear Emma, a hefty toll. Unfurling from the void, shadows clung to her legs, snaking their way upward as if to suffocate her will. She fought against the cold, the foreign sensation gnawing at her thoughts, her heart racing. "I won't let you take them!" she screamed, attempting to push through the oncoming tide. But the shadows were relentless, slicing at her courage with whispers creeping into her mind. "Your love won't save them," it crooned with a tone that felt both disgusting and inviting all at once. "But fear is the doorway. Feed it, and perhaps they'll spare you." Emma's breath quickened. What would it mean to succumb to fear? Suddenly, flickers of light began to dance in the distance, tiny pinpricks shimmering in the dark. "No!" she shouted, forcing herself to focus. "You won't control me." With pure defiance, she remembered the locket. It had a pulse, a glow that burst with her love for her children. Grasping it, she raised it high, a small ember in a sea of despair. "Your hold on me is weaker than you think." The darkness around her writhed, a surge of anger manifesting in howls and screams. But the locket resonated with warmth, a steady pulse synchronizing with her heartbeat as it filled the space with a golden light. "Not good enough, Emma!" The shadows screeched, their grip slackening as the light pushed against them. "You think love can conquer all? It is merely an echo, an empty promise." But Emma refused to listen. She focused all her willpower into the radiant light, willing it to expand, to swallow the dreadful whispers that clawed at her mind. With each heartbeat, the light intensified, forcing back the shadows until the air was electric with possibility. And just when it felt like the darkness might shatter, she heard her children's laughter, a sweet sound cut short by a wail. "Emma?" Their cries sent agony ripping through her. "Help us, Mom!" Tears streamed down her face as she reached further into the light, the laughter becoming more frantic, intertwining with the haunting echo of shadows. This is it, she thought, a desperate fire igniting within her. The locket blazed once more, illuminating a twisted figure emerging from the dark, its features indistinct, shifting and swirling. A monster born of nightmares, wiping amusement across what could only be its grin. "Look at them, Emma," it taunted, the silhouette shifting. "Do you sense their fear? How it prickles sweetly?" But under the blanket of terror, another sensation pulsed beneath Emma's skin, a rush of fury, a fierce hunger to reclaim what was hers. "You will not win!" she roared, surging towards the fading laughter that echoed in the shadows. Yet, as she lunged forward, darkness clutched at her, wrapping around her like an embrace, and then she realized the truth. The laughter wasn't her children at all. It was a game, one designed to break her heart. Just how far was she willing to go? "Mom!" The cry faded into the darkness as a new wave of laughter rolled over her. Caught in the tension of the moment, Emma's resolve wavered. What would be the cost to save them? And deep within the shadows, the monster smiled, waiting for her next move. The darkness tightened around Emma, each breath more labored than the last. The laughter wrapped around her like chains, binding her to this infernal place. The air was heavy with the scent of must and decay, an unsettling reminder that she was somewhere that nightmares roamed. "Mom!" The call shattered the laughter, raw desperation clawing its way into her heart. But as she strained against the shadows, the monster's figure twisted closer, a puppet master of horror, savoring her torment. "Listen closely, Emma," it purred, the voice like cold silver, slicing through her resolve. "Your children are lost in the maze of fear. Only their screams can guide you, and maybe, just maybe, they'll make it out alive." Clenching the locket, she could feel it pulse furiously against her palm, the warmth competing with the freezing dread clinging to her. "I won't play your game," she hissed, each word a fight against despair. But the fear gnawed at her. A world where darkness dances, it echoed in her mind, twisting her memories into horrific shapes. Visions of her children, their laughter once bright and carefree, now echoed with pain. "Playtime isn't over, Emma. Every moment you hesitate, they fade deeper into despair." Suddenly, she was sprawled on the ground. The shadows retreated for a brief moment, revealing a flicker of light that flickered like a dying star. Her heart raced with hope, pumping adrenaline through her veins. She scrambled toward it, but the laughing voice pulled her back. "Don't you see?" it sneered. "You'll find nothing there except more darkness." A surge of anger ignited within Emma. "I refuse to believe you." She pushed herself up, forcing the fear aside. She ran towards the glinting light, each step pushing back against the despair. As she reached the light, it shattered into 1,000 points, revealing dozens of images of her children, trapped in a twisted reflection. "Mom! Help!" they cried, their faces distorted with fear. "No!" Emma screamed, lunging forward. The monster's laughter filled the air, a horrid cacophony that threatened to drown her will. With a roar of defiance, she thrust the locket forward. "You will not win!" The locket pulsed fiercely, unleashing a wave of golden light that cut through the shadows like a blade. The laughter choked, turning into howls of rage. But as the light flickered, Emma recognized the chilling truth in its glow. Fear and love, she breathed. They're intertwined. Glimmers of her children swam towards her, the light wrapping around them like ethereal tendrils. She could feel their warmth, their cries blending into one harmonious plea for salvation. "Mom! We're scared. Hold on!" she cried, inching closer, desperation fueling her steps. But with each heartbeat, the shadows clawed back, grasping at her ankles, pulling her back into their rancid depths. "Let go, Emma," the monster taunted, creeping up beside her, whispering sweet poison. "You can't save them. You're too far gone. Look at your own fear, it's exquisite." She felt it surge, a tempest of horror. But inside there was a flicker of resilience. "I will not let fear control me." Gritting her teeth, she plunged the locket deeper into the oncoming shadows. "I'll fight for them." The air shimmered, the weight of dark clinging like molasses. Shadows screamed, the monster-esque grin stretching unnaturally. "Where will this fight take you, Emma? Will you lose yourself just to save them?" As the echoes started to wrap around her, the laughter reached a fevered pitch. Lights flickered in the corner of her eyes, visions of her children fading and reappearing like apparitions. "Mom!" Emma grounded herself, clenching the locket. It blazed with energy, chaos swirling around her. She had one chance left. She had to make it count before the shadows consumed them all. But as she concentrated, something shifted in the darkness, a whisper of betrayal that silently tightened its grip around her throat. "Are you ready to discover just how far you'll go for them?" Just then, the ground beneath her cracked open, darkness spilling from the fissures with unfathomable hunger. Emma gasped, her heart racing. Was the dark taking her children? Would she cross that boundary? What would it mean to pay that price? With a final cry, she plunged forward, bracing herself for what awaited. And the laughter twisted into a howl, echoing ominously, as a new game began. Emma plunged through the crack in the ground, a chasm of darkness yawning beneath her like a waiting maw. She fell, tumbling into a void, the air snatching her breath and her resolve. The laughter echoed, a mocking symphony that frayed her nerves. She reached for the light, the distant glimmer guiding her deeper into oblivion. Then, a sudden stop. With a jolt, she landed on something cold and wet. Emma scrambled to her feet, the familiar taste of fear clawing at her throat. Around her, shadows writhed, coiling and shifting like serpents in the dark, but she couldn't see where they ended or where she began. The air was thick, nearly suffocating, drenched in despair. "Mom!" a voice called, strained and distant. It bloomed in her chest like a flower of hope. Yet it was soon followed by a chorus, another layer to the dreadful laughter, a sinister choir composed of whispers. "Join them, Emma. They only want you to play no," she shouted, fists clenched, heart pounding. "I won't let you take them." But as she glanced around, she felt the darkness breathe, its cold tendrils curling around her ankles. The shadows thickened, revealing twisted apparitions of her children, their faces pale, eyes wide and glistening in dread. They appeared in flashes, always just out of reach, their arms outstretched as if pleading for her to save them. "I see you!" she cried. "I'll come for you!" But their forms wavered and swayed, flickering like old film. You can't save us, Mom, they murmured in unison, their voices melting together, echoing the monster's taunts. Emma's resolve quivered, doubt seeping into her mind. What if it's true? She thought, a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. Agonizing memories of their laughter, their joy, flooded back to choke her. The moment she realized her children weren't safe, it clawed at her soul. Was her best worth enough? Look at you, the monster whispered, its voice slithering from the shadows, a cruel serpent ready to strike. You're losing yourself in this darkness. Every moment you hesitate, they linger closer to despair. With trembling hands, Emma held up the locket. Its light pulsated weakly, barely flickering against the encroaching dark. No! I need you! She shouted, and with that she slammed the locket against her chest as if drawing the energy from her own heart. A burst of light flared, tearing through the blackness, illuminating the twisted landscape around her. For a moment she saw them, her children, trapped in shadowy cages, their cries mingling with the howls of the monster. Mom! Please! Panic surged through her. The darkness roared, battering against the bright glow. You think you can take them? This is a game you can't win. Emma charged forward, fueled by terror and determination. She could feel the bitter chill of despair slicing at her, but she pushed through, reaching for the nearest cage. It was solid, unyielding, yet she could hear the heartbeat of love within. Stay with me. I'm coming, she pleaded, but doubt kicked at her heels. Just then, one child's voice cut through, a beacon of clarity. Trust, Mom! Trust. With a renewed sense of purpose, she gripped the locket tighter, feeling it become an extension of her will. Just as the shadows surged forward to swallow her whole, she forced the light down, aiming it at the cage. Together! She roared, the words fierce and unwavering. And the air crackled, a tension filled with desperation and hope. But the ground quaked unexpectedly, as if responding to her fiery resolve. The darkness screamed, a chorus of fury and rage. You think this is love, Emma? What if you're too late? Like a thunderclap, the darkness erupted into shadows, collapsing toward her in a whirlpool of chaos. A new scream tore from her lips as she was thrown back, the locket sliding from her grip, spinning away into the void. With her heart hammering, she lunged for it, but as she reached out, everything dissolved into shadows and echoes. The last sound burned into her mind was her children's anguished cries, slicing through her like a dagger. Emma? They faded, their cries swallowed by the darkness. The air grew still for a breathless moment. Had she truly lost them? Panic surged within her, and she felt the darkness closing in. But the locket pulsed faintly, a slight flicker of golden light fighting through the overwhelming void. I won't give up, she whispered, not quite believing it, her every syllable a desperate prayer. Just then, a horrifying thought gripped her. Would she even recognize the truth if it came? The remnants of laughter grew louder, a cruel reminder of what she was fighting against. And in that moment, the shadows seemed to whisper a dreadful secret. What if saving them meant losing herself? What if love itself was the true darkness? The shadows thickened and pulsed around Emma, whispering secrets that sent chills racing down her spine. She could feel the weight of despair pressing against her chest, pushing the air from her lungs. The flickering light of the locket was a beacon in a storm, but it too was dimming, fighting the tide of darkness that encroached on her every hope. Mom, the distant, haunting voices came again, this time laced with sorrow. Come play with us. Emma shook her head violently, trying to banish their calls. Each time they cried out, the echoes morphed into taunts, the atmosphere growing thicker with the weight of memories, her children laughing on a sunny day, the warmth of their hugs, the mundane joys that seemed worlds away now. No, she gasped, desperation clawing at her. I'm coming for you. I won't let this darkness win. But the ground trembled beneath her feet like a living thing. Emma felt its pulse, a sickly thrum that resonated with her own heartbeat. It made her skin crawl. Trust, the voice had said, but trust in what? How could she fight the darkness if she didn't even understand it? The laughter crescendoed, spiraling into a cacophony of dread that echoed off the barren walls of the void. Shadows twirled and danced, taking on familiar yet twisted forms that made her stomach churn. Was that? No, it couldn't be. Emma, why do you fight? The monster's voice broke through, smooth and silky like ice sliding on wood. You know they're trapped beyond reach. You're too late. Suddenly, the ground beneath her splintered, throwing her to one side. She tumbled onto an expanse that was surprisingly solid, a sinewy stretch of darkness that seemed alive, breathing beneath her. Waves of despair rushed in as she instinctively scrambled to her feet. Ahead, the flicker of the locket pulsed erratically, a dying star in the vastness of the void. Emma reached for it, her fingers brushing against the locket just as the shadows erupted around her, closing in with ferocity, trying to snatch it away. No! Not again! She shouted, feeling the cold fingers of despair wrap around her throat. The air pulled away as if someone had stolen it. She felt herself slipping, the suffocating weight nearly unbearable. But then, a vision, a surge of warmth, a memory of her children's faces, their laughter ringing clear despite the chaos. Emma's heart ignited with new resolve. This time, she would not stand still. With a growl, she pushed back against the shadows, feeling the light pulsing through her veins, an echo of their love mingling with her own frantic heartbeat. Together! She cried again, channeling every ounce of hope she had. The locket screamed to life, bursting forth with blinding brilliance. Light surged through the darkness, illuminating the twisted landscape, revealing images beneath the surface. Forms that resembled her children flitted about the edges, their faces twisted with expressions not only of pleading, but of anger and despair. Mom, why did you leave us? It was a voice she recognized all too well, a sharply painful echo that cut right through her heart. No! No! Emma screamed, clawing at her ears, but the words resonated like a haunting melody, each note drumming in a rhythm of guilt. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, as if wounded by her pain. The ground surged beneath her, knocking her off balance. She fell, watching helplessly as the locket bounced off her palm, skittering out of reach into an impenetrable void. God, no! She cried out, reaching desperately after it. Please! But the darkness seized hold of her thoughts, enveloping her in its brazen embrace. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, twisted and mischievous. Maybe it's time to let go, Emma. Maybe this darkness is where you belong. Every instinct screamed for her to fight, but as she stared into the abyss, a sickening realization settled in her stomach. What if this darkness, what if it was not only out for her children but for her soul as well? Just before it threatened to engulf her completely, she glimpsed something. A shadow slipping away, leaving behind an echo of laughter. A memory, perhaps? Emma. It faded, lingering long enough to spark fear and a flicker of understanding. There were horrors deeper than any cages. What if the monster wasn't the shadows but the truth she had to face? And in that crushing moment, an icy dread crept up her spine. What if the monsters they faced reflected back the darkness within her? Emma stood at the precipice of despair, shadows swirling around her like a storm intent on swallowing her whole. The darkness beckoned, whispering sweet deceptions that grazed her soul. Join us, it's easier than fighting, it coaxed, all the while shaping monstrous forms of her children, twisted and writhing with sorrow. But with newfound clarity, Emma pushed through the grasping tendrils. No! I won't surrender my love for you! She screamed into the suffocating void. Fighting against the miasma of confusion, visions of Mia and Lucas surged in her mind, their laughter, their love. This realization ignited a fierce flame within her. I won't let go! She howled, clutching at that fiery anger. It's what made them family. It's what gave life meaning. That feeling of parenthood burst alive, strong and bold. Emma rushed forward, driven by their ephemeral voices that broke through the dark. Help us, Mom! We need you! Her breath came out in ragged bursts, but every step she took urged her closer. The shadows demonstrated their ferocity, battling against her with howls that clawed at her mind. But the warmth of the locket rekindled with every passing moment, each pulse a reminder of the love binding her to her children. Not today! She shouted, each word strengthening her resolve. You don't own me. With a determined thrust, she raised the locket high as if it were a sword, the light piercing through the encroaching darkness. You can't have them. I will save my children. The shadows shrieked in fury, momentarily retreating from the radiant pulse emanating from her heart. She pushed onward, arms extended, eyes wide with desperation. Trust. I'm coming. And there they were, flickering amid the reduced darkness. Mia and Lucas emerged in fragments, the candid innocence of their faces barely visible yet unmistakable. The way they smiled shed joy even within the gloom. Help, Mom! They cried, their voices caught in an overlapping echo. Every plea struck deep into her heart, a relentless drumbeat urging her to keep going. Please! I'm almost there! She shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins as hope surged stronger than despair. Just as she reached out, their hands brushed the surface of the darkness tendrils still gripping them tight, pulling them back. The tears threatened to spill as her pulse quickened. Hold on. I'll break this curse. With all the strength she could muster, she hurled herself forward, and the locket exploded in light, scattering the darkness. Mia! Lucas! I love you! As the shadows shrieked and writhed beneath the brilliance, their forms illuminated, revealing genuine features intertwined with horror. But still, the brightness engulfed them, the light gaining power. Mom? Lucas's terrified voice penetrated, urging her forward. Using every ounce of strength, Emma tightened her grip around the locket, charging toward her children as a brilliant wave of energy wrapped her completely. The darkness recoiled, an anguished howl escaping its depths. But the light wasn't just a force of power, it was recognition and truth. Wasn't she guilty of allowing shadows to blur the line, and hadn't grief claimed her sight? In that moment of clarity, Emma realized she was filling her heart with despair, not hope. The sacrifices she made had created ties to pain, but love was a bridge that could soar above it. As her heart swelled with purpose, she forced her voice to resonate with strength and clarity. You don't control my love. It sets us free. And with that, the shadows shattered. The light surged through the vacant air, washing over Mia and Lucas, lifting them from the grip of darkness. Their forms shimmered and twisted, but the bonds now tugged against the shadows, growing weaker. Mom! They broke free from the twisted nets of dark energy, racing towards her, eyes brimming with trust. Emma reached for them, vulnerability merging with courage as she pulled them tight against her. With an explosive burst, the locket unleashed pure love, illuminating everything as the darkness dissipated. The monster's screams echoed, an anguished farewell. As it crumbled away, vanishing amidst the brilliance, Emma inhaled, daring to hope as she felt the warmth of her children beside her. As shadows fluttered away into oblivion, the ground stabilized, revealing once more the familiar contours of their front yard. Filters of golden sunlight broke through the horizon, kissing their cheeks gently. Mom! Lucas breathed as he looked up at her, still clinging tightly to her hand. I was so scared, she knelt, pulling them closer. I know, sweethearts. But we're together. We're safe. I wouldn't go anywhere without you. Emma released a shaky breath, tears mingling with relief as they wrapped their small arms around her. The horrors of the yard sale felt buried in shadows, now an ugly memory dispelled by her fierce love. In that moment, the sun shined brighter than before, washing over Maplewood and reclaiming the day their future shrouded in light, where laughter would once again reign supreme. And as they held each other, laughter began to trickle back into their world. It signified hope, a promise that they would always choose love, no matter how dark the shadows loomed. Now all that remained was to let life unfold, one cherished moment at a time. Don't walk away without being part of this incredible journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to unleash the power of the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And finally, don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this mind-bending finale. Your support makes all the difference.